What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and our unbeaten streak with the 3-4-3 formation continues. Talked about this at the game against Sporting KC, and once again, I really feel like this is a big deal. It's a good formation. I mean, it is a strong formation. It brings out some of the best in our players. It allows for players like Perez to have some moments where he is typical Perez, but we have cover for him, so it's not really affecting us. I think that's the big thing, is that it just makes our defense more stable. So it allows us to be that strong attacking team that we are, but we're a bit more stable defensively, so we're not going to give away as many clear-cut chances. And you can see that throughout most of the game today. I mean, they had some chances. Obviously, they scored a goal. That probably would not have been scored if Brad was in goal, if I'm being honest, because it wasn't that great of a parry. But, as far as clear-cut chances are concerned, they never really, I don't know, they didn't really have like a period of the game where it was like all of them just dominating the game. Like it felt sometimes against Sporting KC. And obviously part of that is down to the fact that we were down to 10 men. However, I just feel like we were so much more open in that game, and it felt like they had so many more chances where they were able to counter on us. Whereas here, every time they tried to counter on us, we had enough cover to make sure that didn't happen. And the big part of that is you have three defenders back there instead of just two. Because when you play 4-2-3-1, your fullbacks don't really defend whenever you're on the attack. And so they get up the field, they don't stay back, and now you've got two covering instead of, the three in the center. So I think it's just a big change that's happened this season that's really helped us stay consistent, which I love. So I don't know, I hope that they look at that, they see what the formation does, how it brings out the best in our players, and we keep using it. Even if it means we have to put players out there like Miles Robinson. He's not necessarily a player that's going to... He's a player that sometimes can be a little bit scary. Overall, I think he did okay today. Not really getting into individuals right now, but you have players like that. When Chris is injured, when Franco's injured, you kind of feel like, okay, so who are we going to put in now for them? Yes, you do have Miles. I think Sal might also be able to play there as well. And it's not like they're going to have the same effect as Franco and Chris in those positions, but I still think they're good enough to where let's not change up the formation. Let's not change that up, because it really is helping our team. It's helping players get the best out of those positions. So anyway, with all that being said, there are a couple incidents that need to be talked about. First of all, our penalty that was given. The thing about this one is it's all down to the referee. It depends on what referee you have, because some referees would look at that and say, okay, that's too soft. He just kind of felt the contact and then went over. But other referees will look at that and say, well, why is his hand right here on him? Why are you putting your hand up and pushing? So I can see why it was given, but I can also see why Orlando fans would be upset about it, because, yeah, it is a little bit soft. The one that I will say probably they should be more upset about is the handball in the first half. It was a situation where he had no idea. The ball was here and it kind of went up into here, but his hand is still above his head. It's in an unnatural position. So I would say, even though it didn't really affect much, that would be one that I could understand them giving. I honestly am surprised VAR didn't kind of go back and say, yeah, that might have been a handball. That was one that I would say probably they made a mistake on. The first one, I feel like it depends. Either way, it could be a penalty, it could not be, just depending on the ref. But the handball definitely is one that I feel like most referees would have taken a look at, just because his hand is up here. So I understand the frustration there. And then, of course, there's the one at the very end where the guy, running into the box, and Perez slides in and he flicks it out wide and then just drags his feet and falls over. That's a flop. Honestly, realistically, the referee could have looked at it and said, all right, you get a yellow for the flop and then a yellow for your descent coming at me, which I got a nice slow-mo replay of that. That was terrifying. If I saw that coming at me, I'd be freaking out. I'd be like, okay, look, don't eat my soul. All right? I mean, his eyes got huge, and he's got no hair, which makes his eyes look like little beads, and I don't know. It was scary to look at. But yeah, that was one that definitely, could have been a yellow for the flop, and he gets a yellow for charging the referee descent, Which I will say, I've seen dissent go kind of unnoticed in a few games this season. I was glad that the referee kind of took that upon himself today to sort of card a lot of the dissent, because there were a lot of very bad reactions from the Orlando players. And, obviously we have a couple of our players that react as well. Perez is probably one of the worst in the league that I've seen. But there were a lot of Orlando players today that just every single time you see Kleshin always in the referee's face, every single decision he makes. There's like, at some point, that's got to be dissent. You're getting in his face every single time, and it's not like you're having a conversation with him. No, it is. That's dissent. And the referees, for some reason, they don't call that stuff. When I was watching the LA Galaxy game, we get cards for some stupid stuff that really probably shouldn't even be cards, and then they're all in the referee's face, yelling at him, blah, 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 and there's nothing. I'm just like, dissent is still a thing. You got it anyway. So it's a little minor thing, but overall, it was a difficult game to have to officiate just because things did get pretty chippy out there, which, it can be very entertaining, because I felt like last season it was more the fans that got the rivalry going, like Orlando fans chanting horrible things at us and us kind of like, on social media tearing them apart. No, but it really felt like more of the fans hated each other more than the players did. Like, it never really got that chippy out there on the field. This game definitely felt more like a rivalry as far as the chippiness and all that stuff. Like, the players really got into it, really passionate. Everything is being yelled at. But at the same time, I mean, you still have to make sure that you're keeping their emotions in check, because if you don't, it can boil over. And there were a couple times that it did, because the referee didn't really do a good job of keeping those emotions down. And that is something, just obviously this is more of a talk about the referees than the game itself, but I do feel like a lot of MLS referees let that stuff go, and so the players feel like, oh, well, I can do that then. I can yell at the referee all I want. And it's kind of become this thing in the game where you're able to just kind of yell at the referee and you won't get anything for it unless you really do something like offensive or something like that. I don't agree with that. I don't think you should be able to yell at the referee every time. If you want to talk to him, no problem there. You should be able to communicate with him. But to stand up and yell at him and to have like 3 players get in his face and be like, no, 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 no. I mean, that's too much. And there was way too many times that it just felt like these players are getting out of hand. So as far as we are concerned, though, individual performances, Alec played okay. Obviously, I still think that the goal that they got probably wouldn't have been if Brad had been on the field, just because it really wasn't that good of a parry. The shot comes from way outside the box. There was a little bit of movement on it, but it's still one that you kind of feel like just get it away, and instead he just kind of like swatted at it and popped it right to a guy that's charging the goal. So I do feel like he should have done a bit better there. However, he did make some good saves, mainly in the second half. There was one that was like near post, got his hand down well. So I do feel like he did well enough, but there still is parts of his game that need some improvement, especially because Brad's not going to be able to do it forever. So eventually he is going to have to step into the first team picture, and I do want him to get there. So defense, Perez was okay today. Didn't really see any problems out of him. Didn't see any moments where I'm just like, typical Perez this season. Honestly, I thought he played well enough. And I do think, once again, this formation suits him more, because if he does have a game like he did at the beginning of the season against Houston, we have cover for him now because Michael's dropped deeper. So I do think this formation does suit him a bit better, but I also think he did play well today. So, it's not all just, Perez being typical Perez, but we had cover for him, so it's okay. So, I think he has started stepping up his game a bit in the past few games, but there still are moments where you see the wild side pop out a little bit. It's just like, all right, just calm down. Michael in the middle, once again, I think he's the perfect anchor. I think this formation it's what works well for him, because he doesn't have to be the one that's stepping up and making challenges. He gets to be the one that reads the entire game. He gets to see everything coming towards him, and that's where he thrives, because he's such a smart player. So I think he needs to be in the center of 3, not one of the 2, because it just works so much better for him. And then Miles, like I said, I know why Tata didn't play him in the last game. I know that he doesn't really trust him yet because he's still younger. He hasn't really gotten as much experience. However, I do think that he is at a level where he can at least be out there and not hurt us. And that is something that we might need, especially in a moment like this where Chris and Franco are both out. We might need him to step in, and even though he's not going to be great, even though he might have a few moments where he kind of checks out and then has to make a last ditch challenge because he tuned out for a second, he's got the speed and the strength to be a good defender, to be good enough physically to get the job done. Now, still need to work a bit more on the technique, but I do think that'll come with more playing time. But I do think you need to give him a chance, though, especially if you don't have another option, because changing the formation, kind of similar to last year, how it felt like whenever somebody went out injured, it felt like their option was, oh, well, we'll drop Jeff out of the midfield into defense. There's no reason to switch everything around. There's no reason to change up a lot of different things. Just put somebody else in there who can also play that position. Even if they're not going to be as good, the people around them will help them grow and get better because they're used to playing this formation. So it's a huge thing that I think we need to focus on going forward, because I really do think it's going to mean whether, we're going to have those few games where it's going to be make or break time, and are we going to make changes because of injuries, or are we just going to say, all right, let's give some players some chances because we have them in the team? So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. As far as the wingbacks are concerned, both Greg and Julian both had pretty good games, not great. I think there are aspects of the game that both of them had to work on. For Greg, the defensive side needs a little bit more improvement, and you can kind of see that last game whenever we're playing 4 in the back. He's supposed to be more of a fullback. You saw the defensive side of the game was not completely there. But today, one of the big problems that I saw was just way too many times he's going to ground, trying to slide in and win it instead of standing the guy up. I don't know why he started doing that today. It's the first time really that I think I've seen it all season. But defensively, overall, he just needed to improve a little bit more, just because we need those wing backs to be able to do that defensive side. Julian, he's not really required as much to do the defensive side of the job. He does do well in making sure that the wing is covered for the most part. There were a couple times that he got beat in behind, so kind of scary there. But overall, I think he tracks back well enough that we don't have to worry about it as much, and he never really has to be a defensive player. Greg is much more of a defender, so I feel like he needs to focus on that side more, just because it is more of your job. You are supposed to be a bit more defensive. As far as on the ball, both of them play the ball really well. Greg, his game is much more the quick 1-2s, and Julian's is much more of the crossing, and both of them brought some good passing, some good crosses in, relative to how they play. So I thought they both did well enough there. But yeah, defensively, need a little bit more, just because overall, defensively, we look solid. There were a few moments where they got the ball out wide, and it got scary near the end because both of them were dropping off a little bit. So Jeff and Darlington in the midfield, both of them played well. Jeff, once again, breaking up play, being that good defensive player. Darlington being that link-up play, quick to turn, quick to find the ball out, find a quick pass to get our attack going. So that team up in the midfield is just working so well right now, and I feel like you can't break that up. You got to keep that going until, Jeff, I guess, runs out of legs because he gets too old. I don't know when that's going to be. Maybe it'll be like 2 years from now. Maybe it'll be later this year. Who knows? When you're at, 35 now? It could be any day. So we'll see. But I love having both of them in there because they both bring something that makes the other one, I guess, thrive a bit more in their position. So I don't know. I love having this midfield. And then the front three of Ezekiel, Miguel, and Joseph, all three of them I thought played well today. And that's saying something. Joseph, I think at times this season has dropped out of games. Ezekiel, because he's younger, sometimes he can be kind of bullied off the ball. All three of them, they really stepped up today. Miguel, really fast, same old Miguel, just taking on people, not holding on to the ball too long, though, trying to find a pass, which is something that I really think we need more out of him. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. It's a little bit late, all right, so I'm a little tired. Anyway, Ezekiel, very clever, trying to get the ball out of pressure, trying to find space to dribble into, which opens up space for other people, which is fantastic. And then Joseph, making those runs in behind. I will say the finishing from him needs to get back to his level because, he's the finisher. That is one reason we picked him up last year. That's one reason why I was willing to put up with his attitude last year is because he was a finisher. He was going to do it every game, and I knew that was going to happen. Near the end of the year, it dropped off. So far this season, it's had its moments where it's just like, okay, that's why he's out there. And then there have been a few games where I'm just like, he's not really providing much today. He's not really giving us anything. He's having these chances that he's just wasting, right at the keeper. The one where he's pretty much one-on-one with the keeper and then not a good touch and it takes him wide and now he has to cut it back, tries to chip the keeper, hits the defender instead. Moments like that, you just kind of feel like the Joseph that I remember from last season would have finished that. It should be 3-0 at this point. So, there are moments like that where I do feel like he can still improve, but I think overall the work rate has definitely improved. And that's good for me. In my opinion, I want to see him. I would rather see him working hard and not scoring than not working hard and then scoring, because then he just kind of feels like, oh, well, I can just be lazy and get goals. No, you need to be working hard every game no matter what. So as far as the subs that came on, Tito, didn't really see much from him. He had a few chances here and there. I do feel like this was a good point to bring him in just because it was much more of a counterattacking game from us at this point. Orlando had pushed everybody forward. We left one or two guys, and that's Tito's game. You leave him with a ton of space, he's going to beat you in behind. Never really got that ball in behind to him, though. That was the only problem we had. But all in all, I like the work rate he's putting in. I think he's working himself very hard. I do want to see him improve still, more technically than anything. But overall, I still think he's a good option right now to bring off the bench. I don't think he's back to 100% yet after the injury at the beginning of the season. Romario came on next for Joseph, and didn't really see a whole lot from him, and it's kind of disappointing just because I've been advocating. I want to see more of him. I want to see what he can bring, and there have been a few games where I thought he's bringing more than Joseph today. He's working harder to win the ball back. He's a bigger body, so he's more easily able to win the ball out of the air. So there are moments where I think this is why we need him on the field, but then there are still moments where he dives into a challenge or he gives the ball away too easily, and I'm just like, he's still not there yet. But I do think we need to give him some time, and I would like to see, honestly, I don't know if they're ever going to do this, but I would like to see him and Joseph together on the field, just because I feel like you've got him being the big body, flicking it on, and Joseph with a bit more speed, making the run in behind. I think that would be dangerous, and I'd like to see them try that, but I don't know if Tata's ever going to go for it. I doubt it. Anyway, last sub to come on was Kevin, and that was for Darlington, who had picked up a little bit of a knock, so just kind of making sure that he's okay, not trying to push him too hard. And Kevin, of course, has been quite a super sub this season, so I am glad he's getting time, because I felt like last season he was a player that deserved more time but never got it just because of how simple he keeps the game. He doesn't try all this fancy stuff. He's just a player who works hard and keeps possession. And I love having a player like that on the field. So overall, though, it's a good win. Yes, it got a little close at the end. There were a few moments of scares, but overall, we played very well. I thought it was a fairly evenly matched contest, but if there were one team that deserved the win, I would say it would be us, just because we created some of the better chances. And I want to say possession was probably fairly similar. I didn't check all the stats and stuff. But yeah, overall, good game. It's a good win, not only to get us back on track, but also it's nice to go to Orlando and take some points away from there. So all in all, it was a good game. Looking forward to next weekend. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys in the next game. Peace out.